Unexpected heroism, how a pizza girl saved a dying mafia boss, revealing an incredible transform. Sarah's heart raced as she maneuvered her beat-up car through the narrow alley behind D'Angelo's, the restaurant where she was about to make another late-night pizza delivery. The familiar scent of grease and fresh dough wafted through her open window, but tonight was different. An eerie stillness settled over the dimly lit street, making her skin crawl. As she parked, her mind was grappling with mounting anxiety, a suffocating weight of bills, Jake's needs, and the endless worry gnawing at her gut about her aging father, Leo. She shook the thoughts away. She had no room for self-pity. Time was tight, and the clock was ticking on tips, which could mean a world of difference for her little family. As she stepped out, the last glimpses of sunset faded into darkness, casting long shadows that made the alley seem even more foreboding. She heard a rustle and turned. There, slumped against the brick wall, was Sal, an infamous figure whose name sent tremors through the town. Dread crept in, but the ticking clock inside her festered a sense of urgency. She could walk away, but the sight of him, collapsing and living his own nightmare, gnawed at her conscience. Was it fear that held her back, or was it the desperate need to make the right decision? A short breath escaped her as uncertainty flooded her mind. What would others think? Would they label her a fool for attempting to help someone like him? Her phone buzzed impatiently in her pocket, but she hesitated. A surge of courage sparked within her, imploring her to act. She rushed to Sal's side and placed her hands on his chest, feeling the uneven rise and fall beneath her fingertips. Was she really about to use her high school first aid knowledge to save a man whose mere presence haunted her dreams? Doubt washed over her like ice water, but she pushed it away. This was a chance to make a difference, not just for him, but for herself, a shred of purpose in a life swirling with chaos. With every compress, she felt the weight of what-ifs pressing down harder. Why was she doing this? Why did he matter? He gasped back to life under her relentless determination, his eyes fluttering open with confusion and gratitude. As he looked up at her, something unshackled inside Sarah. She didn't see just a mafia boss, she saw a man who must have felt afraid, lost, just like her. The way he stared at her, a blend of terror and admiration, cracked the armor she had built around her heart. Why? He croaked, genuinely perplexed by her heroism or foolishness. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In the following days, a thread of connection formed between them, an unexpected alliance woven through shared struggles. Sal began to unveil a world that shimmered with opportunities she never dared to explore. And yet, with each dawn, darkness loomed. The town buzzed with tension when Sal was accused of a crime that threatened the fragile peace of their lives. Sarah's heart sank, a moral quagmire stretched before her. Was loyalty to a man whose past echoed loudly in the streets more important than her family's safety? Complications spiraled, each conversation powering the tension. If she stood by Sal and uncovered the truth, would it ruin everything she had fought for? Each moment that passed fueled her internal conflict. The stakes grew higher, paralleling her commitment to Jake and Leo. Clutching her phone at night, whispers lingered in her mind like phantoms. When a chilling anonymous message warned her to distance herself from him, the ice prickling at her spine ignited a firestorm within. Panic gripped her, and resolve twisted in her gut. A choice loomed, a betrayal that could fracture her family or a fidelity that could entangle her in a turbulent world. Night deepened, and as shadows contorted around her, she realized one truth remained painfully clear: the hardest part was still to come. Sarah stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, its surface smudged and worn, much like her spirit. The weight of her choices loomed ahead, casting a shadow over her every thought. The silent hum of the night brought little assurance, and as the doorbell rang, she jumped, her heart pounding in her chest. Bringing herself back to the present, she realized that each second ticked by like an alarm set to remind her of the gravity of her situation. With a quick shake of her head, she composed herself and opened the door. It was Jake, half asleep from the long day at school and basketball practice. The usual warmth of their connection had thinned, and unease simmered in the air. "Hey, Mom," he murmured, his voice hushed as he padded inside, oblivious to the turmoil consuming her. She forced a smile, but the worry etched on her face broke through the mask. "Jake," she began, but the words drifted in her throat, weighed down by hesitation. She needed to talk to him about Sal, about the darkness that was threatening to creep into their lives. Yet, could she drag him into her moral abyss? He yawned, rubbing his eyes. "Are you okay? You look kinda stressed." "Just a lot on my mind," she replied as an unspoken truth hung between them. Her heart wanted to say more, to unravel her concerns, but her maternal instinct urged caution. She needed to protect him from the chaos that threatened to ensnare their lives. But what about Sal? Subconsciously, Sarah's mind wandered back to the Mafia boss, his injured form crumpled against the wall, his eyes speaking volumes that words failed to convey. The connection they had ignited a flicker of hope in a life littered with despair. She was drawn to the chance to unearth secrets, to be part of something larger than she had ever imagined. Yet, equally terrifying were the risks that came with entangling herself with someone like Sal, someone whose malevolence permeated through the streets of their town. In the following days, she found herself walking a precarious line, balancing the horror of his life with an overwhelming curiosity. Sal reached out to her more frequently, sharing insights about his world that felt dangerously close to a seductive invitation. Each phone call carried a familiar note of attraction and danger, igniting instincts within her that had long lain dormant. She felt herself changing, awakening to deeper desires, a thirst to be more than just the pizza girl delivering food. Yet with each interaction, the treacherous reality of her circumstances cropped up, gnawing at her conscience. Was she really willing to immerse herself in the chaos of Sal's world? Every time her phone chimed with his name, a mixture of excitement and dread washed over her. As days merged into nights, Sarah's internal conflict evolved into a narrative that stretched her character to the limits. The responsibilities of being a mother clashed with the burgeoning sense of self she discovered through Sal. There came a breaking point when she finally decided to confront Sal about the crime he was accused of. "Why don't you tell me what really happened?" she demanded, determination flaring inside her. She felt powerful in her own right, no longer just a passive observer in her life. The fire in her gaze reflected a woman at war with herself, caught between principle and passion. Sal leaned back, his expression inscrutable, but there was a spark there, one that ignited both fear and anticipation within her. "You don't know what you're asking for, Sarah. Getting involved means stepping into darkness you may not come back from." The tension was palpable, and in that moment, she felt the stakes climb higher. It was no longer just about his redemption, it was about what sacrifices she was willing to make for both of them. "Then tell me if it's worth it," she said, voice trembling yet fierce. "Because I'm ready to know if this could be the path that changes everything for us, or the one that destroys me." As she awaited his response, the moment hung heavy. The answer could either forge a new path for both of them or shatter the fragile hope growing in her heart. But was she strong enough to bear the weight of the consequences that loomed ahead? The night deepened, with uncertainty lingering like a specter on her shoulder, reminding her that the hardest choices were yet to unfold. The silence stretched uncomfortably between them, time seemingly suspended as Sarah's heart raced, teetering on the edge of revelation. Sal's gaze held a layered intensity, one that spoke of both danger and intrigue. She felt the weight of his world pressing down on her, a world she was both drawn to and terrified of, a duality that encapsulated her entire existence in that moment. "What you're asking for," he began, his voice low and gravelly, a hint of something deeper in his eyes. It sliced through her anticipation, the pause making her pulse quicken even further. She braced herself, a woman gathering shards of her resolve, desperate to understand but equally aware of the risks involved. "Tell me," Sarah pressed, the edge of her voice sharp. The assertiveness surprised even her. Was she truly ready to uncover the truth, to step beyond the veil of ignorance into the chaotic rebel heart of his world? The familiar fear whispered in the back of her mind, cautioning her against the potential fallout. Sal leaned forward, an unanticipated seriousness in his demeanor. "You want to know the truth? The crime? The darkness that has enveloped my life? It's not just blood on my hands, it's a contract, a binding. I survived to protect those I care about, including you." The revelation hit Sarah like a jolt. Protecting her. Her instinctive shut-off had been to shield Jacob from the complications of her life, yet here was Sal blurring those boundaries. Moments like this, the unexpected clarity inside chaos, posed the very question she had danced around for days. What kind of change was she willing to accept? Sal's acknowledgement of her presence in his dangerous world was both an invitation and a warning, and it urged her to reflect on her own worthiness. Maybe she could transcend the superficial confines of her life as a pizza girl. The thought electrified her. Sal's phone buzzed suddenly, pulling his focus away momentarily. Sarah observed him, searching his expression for any signs of vulnerability. "You know, this whole conversation is a gamble," she said boldly, her emerging sense of self forging her words. "But I'm prepared to lose if it means accessing your truth." "What's the price of that knowledge?" "It could cost you everything," he replied, a grave seriousness threading through his tone. "You have the power to walk away from this now." The implication lay bare on the table, stark and bracing a knife-edge decision to be made. "Do you think I'm afraid of losing? I've been losing my whole life." His quiet contemplation hung in the air, the emotional gravity of their conversation a fountain of secrets bubbling just beneath the surface. Sal was merely a man, haunted by horrid memories yet fiercely protective. In that moment, something within her shifted, a warrior spirit awakening against the backdrop of motherhood that had suffocated her for too long. As she sat across from him, she experienced a profound sense of clarity. This was more than a rescue mission for Sal or a defiant step for herself, it was an awakening, a realization that she could carve out her own destiny and refuse to be just another victim of circumstance. "Then let us navigate this together," Sarah proposed, an audacious invitation that unleashed something meaningful in her spirit. Her intention crystallized, the echo of her voice a defiant answer against complacency. "Tell me everything." As their eyes locked, she felt the horizon ahead shift, but the winds of change also carried a warning. No matter how much she had gained in strength, the danger was palpable. That realization filled the space with unease, igniting reflections on her son and the potential cost to him. But therein lay her struggle. The quest to redefine who she was, built upon the tangled desires of attraction and the longing to be whole, had awakened something deep within. Was the risk worth embracing the unknown? The shadows of the night enveloped them, sealing their pact within its folds. Now, as she awaited his words, the unraveling of truth, it struck her that every choice was a step into the dark, a necessary gamble. Toward her own salvation or ruin. In this moment, she understood fully that victory hinged not merely on her own desires but on the emotional entanglements that could alter everything. The phone buzzed again, interrupting the silence. This time, it wasn't just Sal's secret she was about to uncover, it was the very fabric that could change her life forever. Would she emerge stronger from it all, or find herself entangled beyond repair? The decision loomed, thickening the tension, the path leading to somewhere Sarah wasn't sure she was ready to go. The room felt charged, as if the air itself was a witness to the tangled narrative that had just begun. Sarah could sense the stakes rising, the tension thick with unspoken words and hidden truths. Sal's eyes were pinned on her, the way a soldier studies the terrain before battle, gauging risks and potential fallouts. Yet, there was something else, an acknowledgement in his gaze that heralded a shift, not just for him but for her as well. "All right," he said, breaking the silence with a roughness that hinted at the churning emotions beneath. "But know this, the truth could suffocate you. It's not just facts, it's a lesson in survival, in moral decay. Are you still willing to hear it? The unyielding pulse of adrenaline surged through Sarah as she squared her shoulders, casting aside any lingering fears. I am. But remember, it's not just your story anymore. This journey touches me too. Sal nodded, a faint glimmer of respect rippling across his expression. It occurred to Sarah how this negotiation of knowledge was a turning point. She wasn't merely stepping into the shadows of his life but forging a path for herself within those darkened corners. With a tension that mirrored her own resolve, Sal began to disclose his past, a tapestry woven with anecdotal horrors, each thread a testament to the choices he had made to protect his own. His words painted a picture of betrayal, loyalty, and a desperate grasp for power among those who veiled themselves in crime. The chaos that surrounded him felt both abhorrent and fascinating, distancing from her own mundane struggles, yet resonating with a part of her spirit that longed for significance. It's like a code we write amongst ourselves, he explained, his voice thickening as memories rolled forth. We're judged not just by what we do but by who we protect and how far we will go to keep them safe. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine at the implications of those revelations. Her instinct to shield Jacob from the world of men that might threaten their stability flashed in her mind. Could she truly endure the consequences of this newfound reality? Each progressive truth revealed about Sal felt both liberating and corrosive, each syllable dismantling the fragile walls she had built around her heart. As the night deepened, Sal's narratives offered glimpses into a life that had churned out fragmented notions of virtue. He spoke of bloodlines and debts, alliances and enmities, painting a stark contrast to her existence infused with caution and adherence to rules. Yet, they both shared one undeniable commonality: a burning desire to safeguard those they held dear, even amidst their flawed decisions. This was not just about him. It reflected the mother in her, the protector at the forefront of her life. But this isn't just about survival, is it? Sarah interjected as his account slowed, an incisive realization flooding her thoughts. It's about the choices we make. The right ones, the wrong ones, it all blends together, doesn't it? Sal's expression flitted through a series of emotions, from surprise to relief, as if he recognized the awakening that sparked within her. You're getting it. It's easy to get lost in the darkness. But it's what we stand for that defines us, even in our sins. The urgency of that insight started to electrify her. Each word from Sal was an echo, illuminating the hidden facets of her identity that had long been dormant. The groundbreaking notion that she could rage against circumstance now lit a fire beneath her skin. She wasn't just a pizza girl. She could redefine her existence, challenge societal perceptions, and snatch agency from the jaws of despair. The moment crystallized, creating a bond that felt both unsettling and empowering. Together, they were not just unearthing the past, they were reshaping the fabric of their futures. The conversation took on a life of its own, leading them into dangerous territories of understanding, forcing Sarah to confront her own values and pragmatic choices. What began as a quest for Sal's truth had spiraled into an awakening of her potential, a slowly forming identity hardened by adversity. Yet, as invigorating as this newfound strength felt, shadows loomed ominously on the horizon. The price for knowledge still hung heavily in the air, promising to unleash turmoil beyond comprehension. Every secret I share alters the board, Sal warned, his voice low, the weight of their commitment pressing in. And for you, that means stepping into a game you might not be ready to play. Amidst the revelations, uncertainty coiled tightly in her gut. The deeper they delved, the more fragmented her sense of self seemed to become. It struck Sarah that for every ounce of strength gained, there would be a multitude of challenges that could threaten everything she held dear. A decision loomed the precipice of her existence, teetering in the throes of revelation. Would she gamble on becoming a player in this dark game, or could she find strength in remaining the protector she desired to be? The shadows thickened, tinged with urgency and anticipation, as they prepared to confront the reality that lay just beyond their grasp. In that charged air, a new understanding ignited within Sarah, but there was no turning back. The next step beckoned her, drawing her further into the unknown. Just as she readied herself for what came next, a sudden loud noise outside jolted her back to the present, piercing the equilibrium of their moment. A confrontation was looming, and this time, the stakes would encompass far more than just her. The sudden noise rumbled outside, breaking the weighty atmosphere. Sarah's heart raced as her instincts kicked in. They were no longer merely sharing secrets, they were on the brink of something dangerous. Every shift in the wind seemed to whisper threats, each sound a potential harbinger of chaos. "Stay low," Sal urged, his voice now sharp and alert. It was a reminder that the game they had unwittingly stepped into was full of tangible perils, and Sarah felt a jolt of fear. She had approached this clandestine meeting as an act of self-discovery, a leap into her hidden potential. But with that leap came the stark reality of consequences. What did she truly know about the world Sal had been part of? His tales were eye-opening but now felt like vague brushstrokes on a canvas waiting for vivid colors to fill it in. More unsettling was the awareness that every truth held the potential for peril. "Who's out there?" she managed to ask, her voice barely stronger than a whisper. Sal's eyes narrowed, focusing beyond the door, scanning for threats. It could be nothing, just a car backfiring or some kids horsing around. "But we can't take any chances." As he said this, Sarah felt the pull of her motherly instincts take over. Every fiber of her being wanted to protect Jacob fiercely. Sal had painted a world filled with ambiguity, but that world had suddenly become a reality, and Jacob's safety was now more at risk than ever before. Her thoughts spiraled. What kind of mother was she if she stood by, impotent in the face of danger? "Sal," she began cautiously, her voice steadier now. "What kind of involvement do you have in all this? Your life, it could involve consequences for me and Jacob, right?" Sal turned to her, his expression shifting from concern to something profound. The gravity of his choice hung in the air, thickening the moment between them. "You're already deeper than you think. That makes you part of this. The question is how deep you want to go." Yet Sarah felt the weight of the room shrink as if it clamped down on her shoulders, pressing her choices into her mind like a vice. "I am a mother," she said resolutely, the adrenaline cracking through her hesitations like thunder. "But I'm not a coward. I'm not simply going to stand aside while the world drags Jacob into chaos. I need to decide how far I will go." Sal responded with a slight nod, a flicker of something akin to admiration crossing his features. "That kind of strength can make a difference, just remember it's a delicate balance. You can't save everyone." That resonated painfully. The barrier to her devotion felt shattered, and she could already sense the fissures forming in her perception of control over her life. Every shadow in that dim room flickered with uncertainty, leaving her with two choices: retract into her protective shell or confront the tumult with fortitude. Outside, an argument escalated. Voices harsh, gravelly cut through the night air like knives. The tension in Sarah's chest swelled, instinct told her to flee, but her heart weighed heavy with the stakes. What if it gets worse? She breathed. The implications of Sal's past threatened to pull her under, stranding her in turbulent waters. He stepped closer, pulling her attention back to his steely gaze. "What if it doesn't? You're looking for ways to protect what matters to you. Every decision will force you to pick sides." The sound of shouting grew louder, erupting into chaos. Sarah could feel her pulse thrumming in her ears. She could bolt for the door, grab Jacob, and slip into the night. Or she could choose to embrace this truth steeping in uncertainty, navigating a world fraught with moral dilemmas, and fight for a place among those shadows. The growing agitation outside peaked, the sound of footsteps approaching. "Your choice is here," Sal stated, voice low but laced with urgency. "We can walk away now, or we can face whatever comes next together." Time stretched and melded in that moment, each heartbeat echoing the reality of her circumstances. The path ahead split before her like a fork in the road, where courage and cowardice awaited, nestled in the darkness. With a sudden certainty pulsing through her veins, Sarah steeled herself for whatever choices lay before her. The night outside promised without hesitation, and she found herself unconditionally ready, the shadows merely silhouettes of power she could harness if she dared. As a shadow fell against the door, they exchanged one last look, a moment that crystallized the gravity of their newfound alliance. The door burst open, and the world they had sought to protect converged with the reality of confrontation. This time, there would be no retreat. What would Sarah choose in that turbulent moment? Her answer awaited on the edge of chaos. The door swung wide, revealing a burst of chaos. Outside, the night unraveled itself in a torrent of shouting and scuffling. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, suspended between the palpable urgency of the moment and the heavy weight of impending decisions. Across the threshold, figures blurred through the dim light, angry faces built from shadows and anger, intent on something that felt primal. In that moment, Sarah's instincts erupted, propelling her forward into the thick of the chaos even as her heart quaked with doubt. She was no longer merely Sarah, the mother determined to shield her child, she was now an active participant in a dangerous game she barely understood. With each footstep into the fray, she focused on the way the adrenaline coursed through her, awakening an unfamiliar strength. She had spent years building a life pivoted on routine and stability, often masking her passion beneath layers of domesticity. Yet here she was, confronting chaos head-on, and it felt liberating. "Stay close," Sal murmured, striding beside her. His presence was both a comfort and a reminder of everything she had yet to uncover. As they moved past the doorway, Sarah saw two men in a fierce argument. One man shouted obscenities, his hands flailing wildly, while the other stood firm, eyes narrowed, fists clenched. The air crackled with tension, and a primal instinct within Sarah urged her to step in, to intervene. Her mind raced with strategies she could distract them, create a diversion, maybe even negotiate peace. "Sal, what do we do?" she whispered urgently, her voice barely breaking through the noise. He glanced at her briefly, an amused smirk hinting at his lips. "You're asking me? You're the one with the fire tonight." That remark ignited something deeper within Sarah. The audacity of it, the prospect that she could make a choice that altered the course of this melee, sent a shudder of excitement coursing through her veins. This was her moment, she could either be swept away or stand tall. "Let's try something," she said, her voice more resolute. Sarah squared her shoulders, stepping toward the tumult. The thrill of stepping outside her comfort zone thrummed alongside the instinctual fear that lapped at the edges of her consciousness. "Hey!" she yelled, pulling the attention of both men. The violence momentarily stalled, their eyes darting to the sudden entry of a stranger amid their chaos. "This isn't what you want. Stop fighting." The glares that turned her way were skeptical, and yet she felt an unexpected surge of audacity embolden her further. What if they listened? What if taking a risk now could de-escalate everything? "You think this is how it's going to end?" Sarah pushed, her heart racing louder than ever. "You want to waste your lives over this? There's more to lose than just pride." The words swirled in the charged atmosphere, echoing with a resonance she hadn't anticipated. For an instant, a flicker of hesitation appeared in one man's eyes, enough for Sarah to see through the bluster. "Do you have something to say?" one of the men challenged, his voice rough. She could read the conflict playing out across his features, the hunger for something more than this destructive confrontation. "I don't know who's right or wrong," she pressed on, steadying her breath. "But I know that if you keep this up, you jeopardize everything that matters. There are lives at stake. Please, think it through." Something shifted in the room, the tide of aggression beginning to ebb as curiosity mixed with confusion painted their expressions. It was no longer just noise, it was a moment of reckoning, and she had woven herself into its fabric. Sal's presence lingered beside her, a silent strength. Sarah realized then that she was not just a mother, she was a woman capable of confrontation, willing to navigate the murky waters of conflict not solely for herself, but for Jacob and perhaps even for the men before her. The silence stretched, laden with possibility. Would they listen? Could an ordinary woman earn the right to be seen as someone who could influence, change? Just as she anticipated a response, the crack of a nearby branch splintered the tension, resounding like a cannon fire and drawing all their attention. The pause was shattered as shadows sprang forward, and a new threat emerged from the darkness. "Get down!" Sal shouted, shoving Sarah to the ground as the chaos rebooted into a frenzied scramble for safety. Sarah's heart pounded as she grasped the implications of what was unfolding. In that staggering moment, she knew that she had taken her first step into a much larger game, a game that required not just her courage but her cunning. The stakes had been raised, and paths had aligned in ways she never expected. What did the adventures ahead hold for her? Would she be able to maneuver through such peril, and what hidden strengths would reveal themselves amid the chaos? The answers lay poised just beyond her reach, waiting for her to make the next move. Sarah's heart raced as she hit the ground hard, dust and bits of debris swirling menacingly around her. The initial shock of being thrust into the chaos rapidly transformed into a visceral awareness of her own fragility in a world that felt all too hostile. "What the hell is going on?" she gasped, her breath shallow, as she glanced over at Sal, who was scanning the surroundings. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here," he replied, urgency cracking through his otherwise composed demeanor. Her instincts kicked in, sharper now than ever. She pushed herself back up, quickly regaining her balance. There was no time to succumb to blind panic. A familiar sense of determination surged within her, a mindset she had cultivated while raising Jacob. Facing that unpredictability helped her respond. The adrenaline was a familiar companion, amplified by the stakes that now stood before her. "Let us move," she urged Sal, impulsively grabbing his arm. But as they began weaving through the throng, uncertainty threatened to derail her momentum. She caught glimpses of the men who had been fighting, now entangled in a confusion made worse by the new danger. "Shouldn't we?" Sal began, but Sarah cut him off. "No. There's nothing we can do for them right now." The individual struggles of those around her momentarily seemed distant, her focus shifted entirely to survival. The world had shrunk into a single mission, ensuring her safety and that of Jacob. As the echoes of shouts descended into an indistinct cacophony, she sensed a shift in the tide of chaos. There was a mysterious momentum buoyed by adrenaline and purpose. In that frenzied atmosphere, she noted a small alleyway emerging to their right, shadowed yet oddly inviting. A primal instinct propelled her forward. "This way." They ducked into the narrow opening. The corridor constricted around them, the sounds of violence muted but still palpable at their backs. Once inside, she leaned against the cool brick wall, feeling the pulse of her own heart. "Are you all right?" Sal asked, concern draining some of the edge from his voice. "Just trying to wrap my head around this," she panted, still digesting the rawness of her earlier confrontation. There had been a moment, an exhilarating flicker, when she imagined herself wielding power through her words. Instead, she was now reduced to a state of raw vulnerability, a stark reminder of her reality in this unfamiliar turmoil. "What was that back there? Are you changing or something?" The question surprised her. She knew the last few hours had transformed her. The feelings she had long suppressed were slowly unfurling, revealing layers of untapped resolve. "I think I just learned that I can't be a passive participant anymore," she confessed, catching a glimpse of defiance in Sal's eyes. "I'm not just a spectator in my own life." Sal nodded thoughtfully, and in that brief moment, she realized he had seen something remarkable in her actions. A sliver of confidence crept in. Perhaps she was more than just Sarah, the mother. Perhaps she was capable of navigating complexity on her own terms. Suddenly, the echo of raised voices drifted in from the street beyond, punctuated with the ominous crack of shifting shadows. They were moments away from being spotted again, and this time wouldn't involve mere words. "We need to go further in," Sal urged, pushing forward. As they continued into the depths of the alley, the heavy pulse of urgency overwhelmed her senses. Thoughts flickered wildly in her mind, how different this all was from shuffling through PTA meetings or debating dinner menus. She hungered for an understanding of the labyrinth that sprawled ahead, sensing that her journey within this uncharted territory was far from over. The weight of uncertainty merged with something she hadn't felt before: purpose-driven empowerment. Just as she began finding solace in that idea, a violent scream shattered her focus. "What now?" Sarah asked, panic igniting once more in her chest. As they rounded a corner, terrible images flared in her mind of their earlier confrontation and the latent dangers lurking just outside the alley. A new voice, shrill with desperation, emerged from around the bend. "Help me, please." That plea hung in the air, threading through the chaos with sharp clarity. She exchanged a glance with Sal, and they both knew whether to intervene or not. The moment demanded action. Sarah inhaled deeply, electrifying her mind. "We can't ignore this." Moving decisively, she stepped into the shadows, ready to embrace whatever awaited them, armed with the awareness that her growth was only beginning, even in the face of danger. But what if venturing deeper into the unknown unmasked threats far beyond what she had anticipated? What was waiting for her, lurking in the darkness, as Sarah and Sal began a path that could alter the very nature of their ordeal? As they moved cautiously deeper into the alley, adrenaline coursed through Sarah's veins, galvanizing her senses. The muffled cries for help directed them further into shadowy terrain. Was she prepared for this? Her mind wrestled with conflicting emotions as she recalled moments from her past: mundane dilemmas like whether to allow Jacob to stay up late or choosing vegetables for dinner. Here, the stakes were palpable, her actions bearing the weight of life and death. Sal's hesitation sparked a pulse of doubt within her. "Are we really going to help?" he asked, glancing back toward the alley's entrance, where chaos still unfolded. "This isn't just about us anymore," Sarah replied firmly, her voice steady despite the turmoil. It was liberating to embrace this feeling of responsibility, awakening a dormant resolve inside her. Years of nurturing, protecting, and defending Jacob flashed across her mind. She could channel that maternal instinct into action. "All right," Sal relented, visibly gaining courage from her determination. They pressed forward, the urgency of their mission clawing at them like unseen hands beckoning them onward. As they rounded the corner, sights and sounds sharpened. A dim glow illuminated an alcove where a figure crumpled on the ground, pain etched across his features. An injured man, clutching a shoulder stained crimson with blood, whimpered pitifully. Instinct urged her closer, even as caution whispered that they were navigating dangerous territory. Who was this man? What events had led to his disarray? But she was not here to interrogate, she was here to act. "Help is on the way," she called out, her voice louder now, more authoritative. "Stay with us. We'll help you." Sal positioned himself defensively at the entrance themselves, on guard against potential threats. The shift made Sarah acutely aware of their vulnerability. Her body tensed as she crouched beside the injured man, assessing his injury, a jagged wound from what appeared to be a weapon, a reminder of the brutality lurking just moments away. The blood was dark, telling her time was of the essence. "I need you to focus on me," she instructed, firm but gentle. Her hands trembled but steadied as she reached into her bag and withdrew a clean cloth. Instinctively, she had packed it for Jacob, not for this precarious rescue. "Why are you helping me?" the man croaked, eyes wide with disbelief. "Because I can't walk away and do nothing," she asserted, finding strength in her words. "You matter, and we'll figure this out." The adrenaline surged again, fueling a new, vital energy. As she pressed the cloth against the wound, an unexpected spark of competence settled over her, unfurling like a banner of defiance. "What do we do?" Sal's voice broke through the urgent task at hand, shadowed by worry as he watched the entrance. "Find a way to get him to safety." Her heart raced, not just from fear but from a newfound conviction resonating in her core. Could her determination allow her to manifest change in this chaotic world? The man winced, and Sarah felt his pain deep within her spirit. His vulnerability reflected the parts of her that wished to hide. Yet she found herself anchored here, trading fear for agency. "Can you stand?" she asked, meeting his gaze with unwavering resolve. Don't let them find me, he murmured, glancing past her toward the emerging figures in the alleyway, silhouetted against the weak light. The realization struck her with crushing weight. We can't stay here. We need to move. The urgency amplified her instincts, urging her to devise a plan. Follow my lead, she instructed both the man and Sal, the weight of leadership shifting comfortably onto her shoulders. This felt right, even as chaos danced tantalizingly close. The fear that once paralyzed her now fueled her actions. As they maneuvered around the corner, the menacing shadows loomed larger, and she could feel danger hot on their trail, the gravity of their choices rounding a pivotal arc. The echoes of pursuit pressed in behind them, her breath quickening in rhythm with the urgency of the moment. Just as they approached a narrow exit that led out of the alley, a shout erupted, reverberating through the stillness. The trap had been set, and an ambush lay within reach. Get ready. Sarah whispered, her heart pounding as her body coiled like a taut spring. This defined moment could either lead them to safety or ensnare them in a fatal snare. But how far had her growth truly come? Would the resilience she sought be enough to shield them against what lay ahead? The looming question burned in her mind, a testament to the evolving integrity she was only beginning to discover. Let them try, she breathed, resolve crystallizing around her like armor, ready to confront the confrontation that was about to unfold. Sarah's body tensed as she pivoted, scanning the alley for a route to safety. The figure of the injured man beside her stirred, fear glimmering in his eyes. It was the moment of truth, not just for him but for her as well. The chaos in her life had always felt distant, securely tucked away in the comforting normalcy of motherhood and mundane choices. Now, faced with this immediate peril, every small decision carried the weight of survival. Can you run? She asked, locking eyes with the man. He nodded, though uncertainty flickered in his gaze. Good. When I say go, we move. Sal shifted nervously, glancing over his shoulder as a deeper, menacing shroud of darkness crept closer. Sarah felt the urgency crackle in the air, this was no longer about hesitation. We're going now. She snapped, her voice breaking the tension, propelling her bark into decisive action. Go. In that heartbeat, they launched into motion, surging toward the narrow alley exit that promised escape. Sarah felt the thrill of adrenaline meld with the dull ache of dread churning in her stomach. Each step echoed with a newfound clarity. She was moving not just for survival but to reclaim her essence, her identity lost amid the noise of daily obligations. The three of them bounded forward, the man's injured leg faltering for a moment, but Sarah's hand was ready, gripping his arm, steadying him. She felt a flicker of power surging through her, a mixture of maternal instinct and fierce determination propelling her actions. Keep going. I'll support you. They reached the mouth of the alley just in time. Shadowy figures dashed toward them, menacing and dark against the dim light. The realization of confrontation sunk in, the internal battle raging as they emerged from the shadows. She could either cower in fear or confront this head-on, a profound choice boiling down to who she was becoming. Over there behind that dumpster. Sal yelled, leading them behind a piece of discarded refuge. They squeezed into the narrow space, hearts thundering. Why are they after you? What happened? Sarah demanded, trying to maintain control of the chaos spiraling within her. There was time for questions now, and she needed to know what they were up against. I was part of something, the man stammered, voice trembling. But I realized the danger, I wanted out. His admission hung in the air, revealing layers of desperation, both in his plight and her own evolving resolve. Then we have to keep you safe, she replied without hesitation. The steadiness in her voice surprised even herself, but every second here cemented her conviction. She wasn't just a woman caught in an unexpected peril, she was becoming a force driven by purpose, anchoring the fragile threads of their survival. Sal peered over the dumpster, tension radiating from him. What if they find us? We don't know who they are. A deep breath anchored Sarah as her mind raced with possibilities. We can't let fear dictate our next move. We need a plan. Strategic thinking, an essential part of her job as a parent, began to blend with the urgency of their situation. She realized how this skill had prepared her for moments like this. "Write a plan," Sal echoed, still shaken but showing signs of belief forming in his expression. As the echoes of men's voices grew closer, Sarah felt the adrenaline shifting. Fear hadn't receded but had transformed into a catalyst for direct action. "If they find us, we're fighting. We don't have any other options." Each word forged a mental armor, and she felt something solidify within. The worthless guilt as a mother that had once plagued her was now a necessary strength guiding her. Her past choices had unknowingly prepared her for this fight, for this confrontation with her own capability. The men barreled into the alley, positioned to flush them out, but Sarah's attention shifted to her surroundings, scanning for anything useful. It was then she spotted a loose board from an adjacent building, a possible weapon or distraction. "Sal, the board," she instructed, gesturing fiercely. He grabbed it, eyes wide with comprehension. Together they could turn the tide, but only if they harnessed their fear into collective action. Just as they prepared to unleash their plan, another voice broke through the tension, a commanding shout that sent chills racing down Sarah's spine. This moment could define her journey. Would she clamber back into the shadows, or rise to meet her fate head-on? The challenge loomed, a tempest threatening to strike, bridging the gap between her former self and the woman she was becoming. How far would she go to protect them now? As tension crackled around her, a fierce determination bloomed. This was her moment, a metamorphosis forged in the fire of chaos. "Let us do this," she murmured, embracing the weight of the decision that lay ahead, even as shadows closed in around them, clamoring for clarity and truth. What awaited her on the other side of this confrontation? That question flickered in her mind, demanding answers as time ran out. Sarah squared her shoulders, gripping the makeshift weapon Sal had handed her. The weight of the board felt significant, it grounded her in the chaos unfolding around them. They were on the verge of a confrontation that would determine their fates. This wasn't merely an innocent pizza girl anymore, this was a woman on a path towards transformation, a determination ignited by the desperate choices she had made. "Get ready," she hissed, urging both Sal and the injured man closer so they could strategize in this narrow refuge. She could hear the men approaching, their voices menacing, slicing through the air with threats of violence. This was her chance to reshape her identity, to act not just as a protector but as a leader. "Stay low," Sal warned, his gaze flicking toward the entrance of the alley. The impending arrival of danger quickened all their heartbeats, yet Sarah could feel a force building inside her, a fierce resolve that could not be extinguished. "Whatever happens, we get through this," Sarah affirmed. Those words, spoken with an absolute certainty, shifted something within the cramped space. The wounded man looked up at her with awe mingled with fear, while Sal's posture softened, reflecting a shift in perspective. As the shadows moved ever closer, she realized they were no longer victims of circumstance, they had become warriors shaped by their experiences. "On three," she instructed, steadying the breath that threatened to falter. Her plan was hasty, perhaps reckless, but the woman she had started to become thrived on audacity. 1, 2, 3. With that, they launched into action. Sarah pushed out from their hiding spot as she raised the board, a fierce shout erupting from within her. "Get back!" The board swung into view, brandished like a sword. The men from the other side halted, taken aback by her startling bravado. "What the hell?" One of them sneered, but she charged forward, bolting toward them instead of retreating, intent on creating a shockwave that caught them off guard. Just as she reached them, a sense of clarity flooded her. She wasn't just fighting for her own life. Right here and now, she fought for Jacob, for every decision that had led her to this moment. She would not let the darkness close in, instead, she embraced it, transforming fear into resolve, chaos into courage. Sal followed her lead, adrenaline propelling him alongside her. Together they pushed forward, Sarah swinging the board with every fiber of her being. Though her movements were driven by instinct, they reflected a newfound composure and strength that came from within, forces forged in her connection to Sal and her desire to protect those around her. The men faltered at their unexpected resistance, their sneers replaced with startled confusion. In that moment, Sarah felt power overwhelming her. She was no longer just a mother caught in turmoil but a fighter ready to reclaim her agency. In the clamor of the scuffle, the injured man, buoyed by her bravery, found his resolve as well. With a gritted expression, he creeped around and did what he could to tackle the nearest assailant. It was a surge of unity amid the chaos, each of them standing strong together rather than crumbling under the threat. "Sarah!" Sal called, urging her to keep focused. His recognition of her strength anchored her further. This newfound clarity, this sense of purpose, coalesced within her. She had come so far, forging connections that had transformed her identity into one that stood firm against oppression. With one last decisive strike, she managed to send one of the attackers reeling back, throwing the broken tension into absolute chaos, sending shockwaves through their ranks. As her heartbeat harmonized with her resolve, she seized control of the outcome. They were not merely pawns, they had become active participants in reclaiming their lives. "Let us go!" she shouted, leading them past the confusion that now engulfed the attackers like an unruly tempest. As they slipped around the corner into the next street, the adrenaline coursed through her like fire. Each step felt like an affirmation of her evolution. Not only had she taken charge in a dire situation, but she also pulled her allies along with her on this transformative journey. Once they were a safe distance away, Sarah paused to catch her breath, adrenaline slowly fading into disbelief. Behind them echoed the chaos they had left. Sal looked at her with a mixture of admiration and incredulity. "You really did that," he said, awe threading through his voice. She met his gaze and felt a wave of pride wash over her. "We did that," she corrected softly. The injured man nodded fervently, a grateful smile breaking through the anguish on his face. "You saved my life. I don't even know how to thank you." Sarah smiled, realizing that her heart had expanded beyond its previously contained space. She had not only salvaged a life but had salvaged her own sense of self, bold and unafraid. In that moment of vulnerability and shared victory, she realized she had crossed a threshold. She had evolved into a formidable force against adversity. She was not merely surviving anymore. She thrived amid chaos. The echoes of her newfound strength became an anthem of empowerment. As the night continued around them, she grasped the immensity of her transformation. The strong woman standing before Sal and the injured man was not just a survivor, she was a protector, a supporter, and suddenly, a hero. Her past no longer defined her. Forcing her eyes toward the horizon, she envisioned the path ahead. There would be more challenges ahead, more encounters that would test her resolve, but she felt ready to face them. "I'm ready," she said quietly, firm in her realization. And as they turned to walk away, they embraced what was to come together in their newfound strength, equipped to navigate the complexities of an uncertain world. Now was the time to forge their futures anew, a journey punctuated by growth, understanding, and an unwavering commitment to protect every shred of normalcy they sought to reclaim. A solid confidence anchored Sarah as she stepped into the unknown, ready to conquer what lay ahead. Don't wait even one more second to support this powerful journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss our next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your love. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion.